An annual business-to-business event arranged by the Korea Creative Content Agency and the Ministry of Culture recently took place in LA to assist the country's content companies sell their work abroad. This year, the K-Story and Comics in America event also held its first ever business-to-consumer program, opening its doors to members of the public interested in K-plotlines as the Korean wave continues to make headlines on the international entertainment front. That being said, on Issues and Insiders today, we speak with two participants who partook in this year's Korean comic event in the US. Hello and welcome to Thursday's edition of Issues and Insiders for August 8th here in South Korea. I'm Min Sunhee. Today, we touch upon the role of Korea's webtoons in strengthening the Korean wave overseas. For this, I have Ellie Hong at the Korea Creative Content Agency live on the line. Ellie, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Nice to meet you.
I also have Esther Lee at C&C Revolution with us. Esther, welcome to the program.
Nice to meet you too.
Ellie, let's begin with details about the event dubbed K-Story and Comics in America.
Sure, yes, Coca. We've been hosting K-Story and Comics in America since 2013. And we introduced leading Korean stories, comics, webtoons to the buyers here in the US through pitching showcases and by facilitating business meetings and networking receptions. We also provide opportunities for the local fans to experience and engage with the Korean webtoons through exhibitions and fan promotional events.
Right. Now, Esther, your company, C&C Revolution, took part in the event this year. What can you tell us about the response to this year's event among related businesses?
So thanks to Coca, first of all. We were able to meet various buyers through this event, including publishers, producers, studios, distributors, and platforms. And all of them had participated because they thought the webtoon market had high potential in the American market. A common response and perception was that because Korean webtoons are read digitally and boast colorful and fancy artwork, somewhat different from the traditional North American comics or Japanese manga. Once the North American audience becomes more accustomed to this digital vertical scroll format, people will start consuming webtoons more and more. And there was also a particularly high interest from OTT streaming platforms and video producers, which also shows that major companies with influence in the content industry have started to recognize webtoons as a growing industry and the next generation source of IP.
Right, indeed. Ellie, I hear the annual event this year included an inaugural business-to-consumer program that invited members of the public to partake in diverse K-content experiences. Could you tell us a bit more about that?
Yes, until last year, our event mainly focused only on B2B activities. But starting this year, as you mentioned, we have added business-to-consumer element to the event. And the local fans were able to come to our exhibition booth to learn more about Korean webtoons and participate in promotional events. And by adding B2C portion to our event, we were looking to the increased global awareness and audience engagement of the Korean comics and webtoon. And ultimately, we think this kind of increased visibility and engagement will lead back to more business opportunities for the Korean companies.
Right. Ellie, do you suppose that this business-to-consumer program will also be included in the event next year?
Yes, we're planning to continue with both B2B and B2C event for our K-Story and Comics in America.
Right. Esther, numerous K-dramas have received rave reviews were based on webtoons. What are your thoughts regarding the power of stories shared by K-Webtoons?
So a single episode of a webtoon is typically very short. It takes less than a minute for some to read through an episode, and they are usually serialized weekly. So it's crucial for a webtoon to have very fun, creative, interesting, and stimulating elements even within a single episode. And I believe this is what makes the individual episodes and thus the entire story and the entire plot very engaging. Also, a characteristic of the Webtoon fan base is that they're very loyal. So it's very easy for the readers to form a bond with the characters and the story. So when it's announced that a Webtoon will be turned into a drama, for example, the fans are going to be curious to see how their favorite characters and scenes that were originally depicted through illustrations will be translated into live action. They're going to be intrigued and be invested, and naturally it creates hype and buzz. So it also brings a lot of benefits in that the drama does not have to start from scratch.
Right. And for some broader perspective, Ellie, what can you tell us about the market prospects of Korea's webtoons going forward?
Sure, the global popularity of Webtoon has been growing significantly in recent years, and fans are offered easy access to Webtoon with many different platforms, and nowadays often in their own native languages. And we all know, as you mentioned, K-content, K-pop, K-drama films, they have been garnering worldwide success, and many of the Korean dramas that were successful were adapted from Webtoon IPs. You name it, All of Us Are Dead, Sweet Home, Moving, Itaewon Class, Reborn Rich, and so on and so forth. So Webtoons with unique characters and strong storylines have so much potential to be turned into a global project. And with these successful outcomes, along with easy accessibilities for fans and for the readers, I believe global interest of Korean Webtoon will continue to grow for some time.
Ellie, keeping in mind what you just shared with us, do you see perhaps the Korea Creative Content Agency expanding similar programs like the one in the US, the K-Story and Comics in America, expanding it to perhaps places in Asia?
Not just in Asia, but we are planning to host another K-Story and comics event, not just in US, but also coming up in November, one in Japan, another one in Thailand next year, and next year in January.
Will the programs be similar, or do you see these programs being different based on the fan base in those respective countries?
Well, we mainly focus on B2B activities primarily, so it'll be very similar. So it'll be part B2B, like business meetings, networking receptions, and business pitching events, along with the business to consumer portion as well.
Right, like the one that you had in LA for the first time this year then.
That's right, yes.
Right. Esther, for the sake of some comparison now, what would you choose to highlight as some of the distinct differences between Korea's comics market and that of the US?
The biggest difference would be that in the US, comics are still primarily consumed through physical comic books or magazines, while in Korea, since everything is so digitalized now, it's unfortunately a dying market. Instead, readers consume webtoons, and it has become a very popular snack culture. And consequently, webtoons are characterized by, again, stimulating plots and very vibrant, high-quality artwork that is specifically designed to provide entertaining content within a short span of time. It's also known for the webtoon-style romance fantasy and action fantasy genres that feature some recurring tropes, such as reincarnation, possession, a lot of villainesses, and isekai, which means being summoned into another world. In contrast, I would say the North American comic market is still dominated by more traditional comics, such as superhero stories from Marvel or DC, for example.
Right. And Ellie, back to last month's K-Story and Comics in America event, what do you believe were some of the major takeaways from this year's gathering?
So this year, over the course of 3 days, we had 14 Korean companies, and they had business meetings with about 70 US buyers. Many of them are from major or big companies here in the States, like Universal, Warner Brothers, Disney, and Blue House. And we were able to achieve potential deal amount of $113 million, which was a 300% increase compared to last year's event. And there was a strong interest from the buyers to work with Korean comics and webtoons, and we're planning to continue this conversation for possible collaboration or partnership in the future.
And Ellie, with regard to the business to consumer program, what was the response from members of the public to the event in LA this year? I understand it was held in conjunction with the K-concert in LA?
Oh, we had great response from the K-pop K-wave fans, I would say. We had our booth. We had our booth with the webtoon fans who were able to come and read webtoons or Korean comics on site. They were able to, try different outfits from the comic books, and we had many different fan engagement activities, and we had a great response from the community.
Right. Ellie, this is also a very general question for you. Speaking as a member of the organizing entity of these events, what do you suppose is the appeal of Korean webtoons or comics to the global audiences?
I think K-wave in general, I think they intertwine with each other. People who are fans of K-pop, they fall in love with K-drama, and they they watch one K-drama and they realize it's from webtoons, and they go back to webtoons, and they fall in love with the K-Webtoons, and they find this whole new industry. And I think it's all intertwined between different genres in Korean wave.
Right, indeed, indeed. Esther, earlier on, you spoke about the interest in webtoons, comics, Korea's comics by streaming platforms. How would you explain the business interest in turning webtoons to motion pictures?
So the media trends right now are changing rapidly. And so it has become increasingly difficult to create good original stories that satisfy the audience. So that is why content makers look for already made content to adapt into other stories. And many well-known franchises have actually already been adapted from comics, games, novels, even podcasts. So with the growing global popularity of webtoons, many video production companies and streaming platforms have naturally turned to webtoons as the next source of IP. The target audience for webtoons ranges usually from teenagers all the way to people in their 30s and 40s. And so if a webtoon was successful and already has a big following, then it technically also means that the story has been proven to be good among a wide audience. And since adaptations such as the Sweet Home Netflix series, for example, have already been successful, more and more companies want to achieve this feat.
And Esther, with regard to your company, C&C Revolution, what are some factors that it considers to be important when creating a piece of work for the international audience?
For the international audience, usually the webtoons and webcomics and stories in general that do well in Korea actually do equally well overseas. So we don't focus on a global-oriented webtoon first. We try to get a really solid storyline that has worked within the Korean fandom first, and then translate it into other language and serialize it globally. Through events such as the case during comics in America, we have been striving to expand our network so that we can look for Western IP and create global-oriented webtoons to target and focus specifically on a more global audience as well.
Right, I see. So based on what you said, I suppose we can assume that K-comics and stories they include universal plot lines then?
Yes, we're striving to do that more.
Right. Moving forward, Ellie, what are some of the Korea Creative Content Agency's future plans? You've spoken about events here in Asia, including in neighboring Japan.
Yes, as mentioned before, we're planning to host the K-Story and Comics in Japan coming up in November, another one in Thailand next year in January. Also, KOCA plans to support the global expansion of K-comics and Webtoons by bringing Korean companies to participate in the global markets and festivals, such as the Frankfurt Book Fair in Germany and Angoulême International Comics Festival taking place in France.
Right, I see. Also, Esther, what can you share with us about your business's plans for this year?
Our most important goal would obviously be to continue creating high quality webtoons to present to our readers. Regarding the US market specifically, given that the webtoon market is still in its early stages compared to Korea and other countries, and thus has significant growth potential, we think it's firstly important to increase the visibility of webtoons and promote them and expand our network with partners through these events. And although it will take some time, we will also definitely pursue live action or animation adaptations of our webtoons. And conversely, we have an in-house webtoon production studio called Midnight Studio. And so, like I briefly explained earlier, we are also planning to take other Western IP, such as American books or comics, and adapt them into more globally oriented webtoons, targeted especially at the Western audience. And we hope that we can bring a more diverse, enjoyable, and just fun content for our readers worldwide.
Right, indeed. And best of luck with that endeavor. Esther, thank you so much for being with us today. And Ellie, thank you very much for your time and your thoughts.
Thank you for having us.
Right, well, that is all the time we have for this edition of Issues and Insiders. Thank you for watching. See you same time tomorrow.